On today's episode of Sovereign Citizen Stories, we're going to hear how a public defender, criminal defense attorney, shut down the argument of a sovereign citizen and also hilariously pointed out one point that the sovereign citizens make which actually makes sense. Hello everyone, Joseph Pometto here. Thank you for joining the Common Law Academy, this episode of Sovereign Citizen Stories. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. It's a free way to support the show and to incentivize me to make more content that you love. I also have a Patreon. Feel free to donate, become a member. It will unlock exclusive content, and it's another way to support the show. Before we get to this hilarious and entertaining story, do a same time sip with me. Today, everybody's favorite elixir of the gods, or perhaps poison of the people, Diet Coke. Not a cop, but I'm a criminal defense attorney, specifically a public defender. I deal with sovereign citizens frequently in my line of work, so I'll share some of my experiences. I've had to represent several sovereign citizens, and they're endlessly hilarious to deal with. My favorite way to cool their jets is to let them finish their anti-government rant and then say something like this to them. Okay, let's assume for a minute that everything you just told me was correct, which it wasn't, but let's assume anyway. Even if the government has no jurisdiction over you, the fact of the matter is that the judge has a literal personal army of sheriff's deputies that will do whatever he tells them to do. If you resist them, they'll use their jails, their guns, their tasers, their handcuffs, and their batons to help you comply. And when they're done doing all of that to you, absolutely no one will tell the judge that he couldn't have done that. Nobody. So that said, let's limit our discussion to the rules that the judge wants us to play by, because otherwise he's going to force us to play by them, and there's nothing we can do about it. That usually helps bring them back to reality fairly quickly. Since I've represented so many of them, I've also taken the time to read their handbook, which is the most nonsense-laden book I've ever read. Not only does it entirely misunderstand and misapply the law, it is also filled with downright falsehoods and lies straight out of its author's imaginary fantasy world. If you want to read it for yourself, you can either pay $25 for it on Amazon, or you can download it for free in PDF form without paying the author a penny. I suggest the latter, given that he doesn't believe in our government. It stands to reason that he doesn't believe in our government's copyright system either. And this is Joe over here. He must not believe in the money printed by our government as well. That said, despite the ocean of bullshit inside its pages, there is one section to it that's absolutely true. That part is the section that says you shouldn't have a state licensed attorney represent you because no attorney licensed by the state will give the arguments in that book out of fear of being disbarred. That, my friends, is the only true statement in the book. That's the end of the story right there. I absolutely love it. I love it because, hilariously, they are totally true about that last part. You see, that's like a tautology, don't quote me on that, but it's this circular reasoning. Well, of course the state attorney won't use these arguments because he might be disbarred. Well, yeah, dude, that's true. As though it's some sort of, the whole thing with the sovereign citizens is this secret knowledge, this secret group. It's like magical words. Like if you say these magic passwords, it unlocks a magical truth. They live in some pre-modern society. That aside, if any of you saw my original episode on sovereign citizens, which I believe was titled something along the lines of the sovereign citizen argument and why it doesn't work. I made this exact argument that this public defender made, and that is, even if you assume everything that the sovereign citizen says is true, the judges, the police, the sheriffs, the government have guns and batons and tasers, and they don't give a shit about your rules. They have their rules, and at the end of the day, they are going to enforce their rules with guns, batons, tasers, and an army of sheriff, police, and or the military, I imagine, if necessary, to make sure their rules are the ones that are applied. Let's think back to when the Brown v. Board of Education, when the Supreme Court stated that all schools must be desegregated, and I believe it was, again, don't quote me, in Alabama. The federal troops, I believe, had to be sent in, or the National Guard, in order to force these schools to desegregate. And that's ultimately, look, you're born into a world of which you may not like the rules, and you may not like the hand that you're dealt, and no one is dealt, and I don't want to say that, but many people are dealt really, really bad hands in this world. But you live in a society, and you're dealt a certain hand, and you're dealt certain rules that basically you have to play by because everybody else plays by them, and that's just the way that it's going to be. And this brings me back to the new title of my show, which is the Common Sense Academy. I'm here to give you sovereign citizens, or anybody else out there who wants to take it, a little bit of common sense, a little lesson in reason and logic, okay? We don't all get what we want, and just because we want something to be true doesn't mean that it is. You're born into a society with rules that you have to follow, and frankly, if you want to change them, you're gonna have to do it through different means than crying and being, pretty much a little baby about what the laws are and what rules apply to you, so that you can justify breaking the law and being a child through the remainder of your adult life. With that said, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of Sovereign Citizen Stories. I know I got a huge kick out of it. If you enjoy my show, please subscribe, like, comment, share. You can also donate to me on Patreon. I would love to make episodes every day, or at least every other day, and just put out loads of content. But I have a full-time job out there defending people who are accused of crimes by the government, actively fighting the government on a daily basis to preserve people's constitutional rights, a document that I believe in, even if the sovereign citizens don't.